CJ Peterson, and welcome to The Journey is Real. We talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their hearts. Today, my guest is another CJ Warrant, and we're going to be talking about baking joy and humor into life. Thank you for coming on today, CJ.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
It's a treat to run into another CJ. As we talked before, I don't often run into that, so it's a pleasure to finally meet another CJ in the world.
There is others I have met, but yes, most definitely. It's always good to have a combine of, C and J. And people ask me all the time what they mean. It's like, I made it up, it's all good. It's all good.
Mine actually do stand for my name. So baking is a delicious passion. I'm more of a cook. I'm one of those who I don't follow the recipe. There's like usually a base recipe, and I'm able to kind of pull the base out and just kind of add as I go until the ancestors kind of tap my hand and say, stop, that's enough.
Yes.
But everything my husband says when I mix my spaghetti sauce, he says, it's never the same, but it's always good. You don't have that flexibility in baking.
Well, I would have to disagree with you just a little bit. When I do bake, I take the base recipe and I bake that off the recipe straight out. Then I taste it and then I formulate a new one from there. And that's where the fun comes in for me. And then it just blossoms into maybe even a better tasting treat or even totally different kind of recipe, different kind of cakes or cupcakes or even a cookie.
Nice.
And that's the fun. That's what I love when it comes down to baking. It's not just, this is the formulaic, there is room to change it up.
And
Yes.
nice. Now you've combined your passion and love for baking as well as your passion and love for writing. Can you share with those listening how you did that?
Well, with just like the baking, there is a formula and then there is room for growth and stuff like that. When I started writing, which I started at a very young age, and I also baked at a very young age. My parents let me in the kitchen and they let me do whatever I want. And like the first thing I baked actually was in third grade, and that was oatmeal cookies. But I used the baking as my outlet to not having to think the formulaic route of a story. If I'm stuck with something, I get up, I bake. And it helps me loosen up my mind and not concentrated so hardly on that problem, more or less, let's find a solution. And that's what baking does for me when it coincides with my writing.
Now, when I tend to get the breakthroughs if I'm stuck on a certain scene, a lot of times on that just barely point of sleep and wake.
So, REM, they were before REM, right?
Yeah, they just kind of come right before there. So I tend to have my phone as a post-it note thing on there. Do you have like a notebook next to you where you're baking to make sure that those pop on there that you can write them down?
There's actually a notebook in every room of my house.
Nice.
And that's almost including the bathroom. Not the powder room downstairs, but definitely my bath, my suite. There's definitely a small notebook, but I have one in every part of the house because, you don't know, which happens to be almost all the time, an idea pops up or it's like, I got it. This is the end. This is the solution. So yes, I definitely have a notebook in my house.
Now, one of your characters in your book is a baker. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Her name is Beth Monroe. It was the very first story that I published in an anthology, which was a part of an author group that I belonged to for many years. The book is called Sweet Reunion, and it was a novella, a very short story. But Beth Monroe, she was a college student and just got into baking cookies and stuff like that, and she just fell in love with it. So right from there, she went with a partner, went into the baking world, opened up a business, and And you could just tell by the things that I describe in the book and just the type of stuff that she made, I have made. And it's just like, yes, I did make that. And it was delicious.
Right.
So, and I kind of took Beth as that character that was a part of me, and just follow along in the story. And her partner ended up taking all the money, and there's the drama there, and in walks in her savior, which was her old college, love of her life that
Right.
broke her heart, and comes back and helps her save the day. So it was a very poignant part of who Beth is
Mhm.
as a character. She is a baker wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I know that a lot of times our own stories bleed into our books. Like I said, I've written 13 books, 13 novels. I've done soon to be 2 anthologies I've been a part of. And
Okay.
so, I understand the concepts behind it. And a lot of times, many of my stories have been in the books. And people are like, well, the reviews are like, well, that would never happen. I'm like, well, no, actually, that's one of the true ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
It's kind of like truth is stranger than fiction. And sometimes you
Most
do
definitely.
not understand people. People are funny. But it's like when you're writing from what you know, it's like the best possible thing for a reader because then they know for sure that you know where they're coming from. And
Exactly.
in one of them, we talk about baking and cooking. One of them was a cook. And in there, I talk about different meals that she would make. And someone goes, you need to make like a cookbook of this character stuff because they sound really, really good. And so,
That's
when you
funny.
can do something like that, it's like, that they've identified with that character and they're following along the
Exactly.
story really well. But
I have an author friend that asked me, she's like, because I'm half Korean and half Italian. They're like, why don't you do something with your nationality? And I'm like, well, actually, I kind of am in the current YIP, works in progress.
Mhm.
My main character is half Korean and half Irish. So she gets tapped into her Asian side, and, learning, I mean, aside from all the crazy that goes on in the book, but she taps into her heritage and learns so much more to appreciate who she is as a person, in all manners. And I took a lot of that from me into that character. So yeah, it is real life is stranger than fiction, and sometimes it's unbelievable.
Yeah, there was one event, we'll call it an event, that I went to, a family event, and someone goes, you need to write a book about this. I said, first of all, no one would believe it. Second of all, those who participated would know who they were and I would be in trouble.
Yeah, unless everybody's passed away.
Yep, no.
No dirty secrets here.
Yeah, sometimes they can get you into trouble. I mean, I've had
Right.
people tell me I'm known as a literary assassin. There's a lot of times where I talk to people to kind of pull examples. Like one of them, Katie McKenna was a police officer. So I sat down with 3 different police officers, and one of them was a female. I want to
Yes.
make the female perspective of a police officer. And the one guy was talking to me, he gave me like a ton of information in the police academy. I said, I'm going to make you her field training officer. I'm going to make your character is going to be your field training officer. And he goes, you can, just don't kill me.
All right.
You have no idea how hard it was for me not to kill him.
To kill him. I see you.
So it's like, it's fine because a lot of times, you run across some unique people.
Oh, yes, I
One of
agree.
them, I was a youth leader for 18 years. And there's a couple kids who I'm just like, I told them, I said flat out, I need to make you a character in my book. And they're like, great. He goes, you can even kill me if you want to. I ended up
Goodness.
not. And he ended up not, he was originally not going to be a main character. He was only going to be in for the one session, the one book. He ended up
Mhm.
being through the whole thing. He was
Wow. So
really
was he a good secondary
accidental.
character? Yeah.
He was. He added a good element that needed to be in there. And so, when you run across people every day, you run across storylines every day. And
Almost definitely.
yeah, the good authors is kind of like, I'm staring at you. I'm trying to figure out whether I'm not trying to kill you. I'm trying to figure out if I can put you in the book.
It should
So
be a t-shirt.
yeah. Well, and I have a cup. Actually, I have a mug that says, "Please do not annoy the writer. She may put you in a book and kill you." I- and so it's like, I have fun with it. And so because
Yeah.
I'm afraid of you if they burn my books, like I'm afraid of you, and I'm like, well, okay, good.
I
don't
used to be
don't
in the
irritate me, and you're good.
I used to be in the beauty industry for almost 30 years.
Mhm.
So I was behind the chair, and you talking about very interesting type of people. You run across all kinds and all spectrums. And it is, you really, I got a good grasp of so many type of personalities and stuff. So, and it's all in here.
Yeah, and eventually it's going to play out in a story. So
Exactly.
well, I've been to your website and I've kind of looked through it. And I found on there something that kind of sparked my interest. It said your family's important to you as well. You share your joy on your website. You share that they keep you grounded and bring you joy. I know my husband does it all the time.
Yes.
He actually has given me people, if they found out, at the end of the trilogy in the grocery store series, the last question is what's in the box. That was his idea. And so it's like when you can get somebody that not only supports you, but helps kind of come up with those twists once in a while, it's
Yes.
really
Yes.
good. But they kind of also still keep you humble, make sure that
That's
you stay
exactly it.
grounded. So can you tell us a little bit about your family and how they do that for you?
My husband, you just basically explain who my husband was. I mean, he is and always been since the beginning, been so supportive of my writing and in any endeavors that I've done. And he just, gives me like if I have a problem, I go to him and he gives me maybe not the solution, but a way to that solution.
Mhm.
So it was great. And it's same
It's good
thing
to
that
have
goes with
somebody
my children.
to bounce off of and somebody to encourage you, especially in the you're
Exactly.
like, why am I doing this?
Exactly. He gives me that encouragement when I'm feeling this low.
Mhm.
And he like, okay, now get back to work when I'm this high. So he does, he balances out. And then my children, and I gotta say, as they're young, I mean, they're young adults,
Mhm.
but they also give me a sense of, I mean, they make me laugh.
Mhm.
We goof around. I have, 3 kids. My eldest is 27, my youngest is 18. And it's just the dynamics between the three. It just fills me with joy. So on days, especially when I write, because I do write on the darker side at times of my stories, and then I come out of my office and it's like, okay, I need to lighten up the mood, and they give it to me. They make me laugh, and my husband does too, but just it's a combination. And throughout, it's been like that throughout the years, and even when they were younger, you
Mhm.
know yeah.
Yeah, and when you can find that encouragement and support and joy in it, it's really good. Like my husband, I call him super hubby. He's a 24 and a half year Navy vet. And so he helps me with the military aspects of the story as well as the medical, because he was a physician's assistant in the military.
Oh, okay.
So he kind of gives me both aspects. Like one time I drew a body and I said, where can somebody get shot and not get killed? And he literally put little X's on where you could get shot and not get killed because he did combat.
That is good to know.
Yeah, he did like 3 tours in Iraq, so he was able to like, this is
Yes.
where you need to go. If it's here, like 1 inch one way or 1 inch the other way, you're in trouble. And so he was able to do stuff like that. And so it's nice to have that font of information right there and add some realism to the characters.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah.
My
So, and he's
oldest.
like I said, he's my biggest supporter. When I originally started to write the books, I had 30 some written just for myself. It was kind of
Oh,
a
wow.
it was
Bravo to you.
yeah, it was a therapy though, and just something it was for me. And it allowed me to have control over my story and how the story went, the direction the story went. And I read one of them to him. He goes, no, you need to publish this. He goes, even if it helps one person, we agreed that it was worth publishing the books.
Most
And
definitely.
so yeah, the messages that you can get in there and the perspectives that you can change. And you know, when you can do that with words,
It's profound.
it is. It's like
Very profound.
a wild kind of magic. It's kind of like,
Hmm.
and I'm not in control of it. I always say I am one of those, usually people are planners or pantsers when it comes to writers. Um,
Yes.
I am a full on pantser.
Me too. Here.
Thank you. The planners give me hives. I have a friend who has like color-coded Post-it notes, and I'm just like,
Well, I do a little bit of plotting more so now than I used to, because
well, I mean,
especially with the series, when you
yeah,
work
there'll
with
be
a
like a
series.
scene here or there that, you know, you
Yes,
get
yes,
to,
yes.
but
But the
not,
general consensus, I pants all the way.
yeah, like I taught a youth group class once on it with and my partner in the class, he was a full-on planner. He sent me 21 pages of character arcs for one book, and I went in there and
Wow.
he knew what I was going to do, but I put his 21 pages on the table, and I put my 3 pages, technically 2.5 pages of characters, basically. And I said, this is the difference between a planner and a pantser. This planner has 21 pages for just his character arcs. I said, this 3.5 pages are all the characters for 12 books. That's it.
Wow.
I said, that's my notes. And they're able to see, you know, the difference between the two. And sometimes people are a hybrid.
Yes.
Like when you can create a world around you that people are so immersed in it,
Yes.
it's just profound. And I would imagine it's kind of the same thing with like cooking and baking. I know when I cook, and it's like that first try when hubby tries it and he's just like, that's really good. It kind of, and it's nothing to do with the recipe because you've just pretty much thrown it together.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like, that's really cool. And so the creative side in you gets kind of stimulated on both aspects of it.
Most definitely. That, especially like with the cooking, if there's nothing really put together in the refrigerator or freezer, it's like I look, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this. Let's see what it tastes like. And you get a general consensus what each individual thing actually tastes like, but the combination. And the same thing goes for baking. It's like instead of using regular flour, you might try wheat or even
Or
rye with
almonds,
something
or
sweet. So, and it's, using that variance of the ingredients really gives you a sense, for me, it gives me a sense of, wow, I made something out of really practically mismatch of stuff,
Mhm.
and it turned out great.
You almost
So
want to put a lab coat on and put evil genius chef or bake. Put one
that's a
on
good idea. I'm going to steal it from you.
yeah, when you go to sit down at the typewriter or the computer, you want the evil genius coat on. Ha, 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 ha. What am I going to do to these characters today? Like,
I get myself in trouble when I do things like that. Like, we went to a party. It was my girlfriend's birthday, and they asked, like, can you make her a cake? So I knew she was into whiskey. She loved German chocolate,
oh dear.
and it was something else. So I whipped it up. It was 7 layers, and oh yeah,
Wow.
it was a great cake. There was nothing left at the end. And that was something that I just put
Well,
together.
I kind of did that a little bit with I do it with the red velvet brownies. Instead of
Mm.
instead of the oil, I use
Yes.
Bailey's. I put Bailey's in there, and then I mix it up. And then when it's in there, I take little chocolate chips and I put 5 of them, one in each corner and one in the middle as it's cooling down. And that allows the chocolate to kind of seep through it. But you got like the Bailey's and then you put the cream cheese frosting on top of it, and it's just like,
I might have to get
go for
that
it. Steal that
recipe
one.
from you.
It's yeah. So sometimes you can play with it, and that's the beauty of it. And it's the
Yes.
same thing with writing. You can play around with the different characters, and they're kind of, as long as you don't go against the character, that's my one rule. Never ever go against the character. Then you can
Yes.
take them into so many cool different directions. It's really
Most definitely. That is, I think that's part of my dilemma always in the beginning of a book, because I initially think of them in a certain position to get them instigated into the story. Then something comes about halfway through the book, but what about this? So I ended up having 3 different beginnings always for each book until it comes to light which one works the best.
I just go with the flow. My characters take over, and like I said, sometimes people pop in, and I'm like, where'd they come from? It's fun for me. It's fun. So what's next for you? What's next in line for you?
What's next in I just finished the first book of a series.
Mhm.
It's called Saints and a Sinner series, and the first book is called Deacon. And we're right now in the process of getting promos and everything ready and getting the arcs ready for the reviewers. And that's probably coming out sometime in the summer. But I am
Right,
with
so
the
by the time
COVID
this
and everything
airs,
else.
it'll be out there.
Yeah. Yes,
Awesome.
I'm just trying to get all the books that has been in my head that's halfway done. I wanted to get out there. So yes, I'm a little bit ADHD when it comes down to my writing. I have 2 to 3 projects going on at the same time.
I'm
And
with
I
you.
can't, I tried to veer, I tried to do one at a time. It just doesn't work for me.
Well, and the problem is if you ignore one, then you completely lose that story thought.
Yes, I
So
do.
like, yeah, like right, I'm ADD and OCD at
Yeah.
the same time. I'm actually a little bit of both. And so I have a standalone that's going on, and I have a Christian fiction sci-fi series that I'm doing at the same time. And
Wow.
meanwhile, there's another series of 4 that's kind of yelling at me that I keep telling them, just stop. Don't
Hold on. You only got enough time left in a day.
wait for a second. Let me finish these 2 first, kind of go.
Right.
So you have about 3 minutes left. Is there anything you would like to add?
I just, anybody out there that loves to bake, try it, go for it, because, there's
Don't be afraid
nothing
to make
wrong.
mistakes.
Yes, you can make mistakes and start all over.
Mhm.
And in the end, you earn the spoils. You earn the spoils of it. And same thing goes for writing. Don't let it stop you, any kind of blockage. Don't let it stop you from putting it, getting it a pen and paper, writing it down, or, using your old-fashioned typewriter, even, or a computer. Don't let nothing stop you. Either way, go for it,
Awesome.
no matter what is good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, CJ. You were a joy to talk to today. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming on and sharing your heart and kind of sharing a little bit of wisdom for any of those aspiring authors out there. I don't
Most
say
definitely.
aspiring writers because if you're writing at all, you're a writer.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Thank
I,
you for having me.
no problem. And for those who want to learn more about CJ Warrant and her books, you can find her online at cjwarrant.com. And thank you guys for listening to The Journey is Real. We talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their hearts. I'm CJ Peterson of cjpetersonwrites.com. Until next time.